Hello, and welcome to a new series of interviews with the global influencers and thought leaders. My name is Dinis Guarda, and we are here with my Cities ABC podcast YouTube series, where we profile some of the people that are trying to answer to some of the biggest challenges that we're facing as humans, but as well coming up with solutions that touch a lot of different areas, from technology to social impact to disability to a lot of different areas that we look. And as well, we're facing challenges in the world, and as well that we always need to look in the much more deep impact. This podcast and video series are part of citiesabc.com. That is a platform that we created precisely to highlight solutions for cities, the places where all we live as humans, but as well as both citizens, as organizations, as business, as schools, and as infrastructure. And citiesabc.com is a new platform that is fast growing and becoming a wiki smart cities platform, and as well concept that highlights solutions for cities for us all as citizens as well. So today I have the honor to welcome Dr. Commander Kartikay Saini. That is a very inspiring personality that has been working in multiple different areas. From the army in India, from the Indian Navy, where he had over 3 decades of distinguished experience as a civil and defense forces, and with 19 decorations, which is quite impressive, and as well been leading a lot of leadership roles in this, as well as is currently the director of EMA Engineering Industries and chairman of the Scottish Eye International School in India. And as well, a man of integrity that is been looking at solutions in education, and especially as he puts it in a way that I really like, challenging education for the intellectual disability solutions, which is a theme that we need to take much more, because there's a lot of layers of disability, but as the world becomes more technological driven, this becomes even more challenging, especially as we touch artificial intelligence in a lot of different areas. So welcome to our podcast, the Dr. Kartikay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's an honor to have you here. So I think in terms of, and actually to start, I'm actually very excited to have, we've been starting to interview some personalities from India, and India is a country, continent that I really love. They have a huge passion since my first experience, even just visualizing India, but as well as a culture, as a lot of different things. So you grew up with all the challenges of India, and India has been going from a former colony of the UK that became an independent country, but it was always an independent country, and actually almost an empire in itself, both from an education, from a culture, and from our history as well. So I would like to go through this history, especially the last 3-4 decades, where India passed through a lot of challenges, and right now is becoming one of the forefront countries in the planet, and by 2050 is going to be by far the second biggest economy in the planet, and in a lot of ways is already becoming, and as well the biggest population in the planet. So I would like to have your background, your education, and what made you who you are today.
Well, I was born in not such a big town as Delhi. It was in a northern province of India called Punjab. And in school, I always wanted to be a doctor until I came across a passing out parade of my cousin at the Indian Military Academy. And that day I decided to join the armed forces and serve my country. I was so inspired. And the journey for the next 15 years of service and 3 years of training, that 18 long years in uniform, of course, it came by. I spent 15 years with the Indian Navy as a commissioned officer. When I left the Navy, I was a commander and serving at the naval headquarters in New Delhi. So in this entire journey, I decided to take on engineering. So from medicine to engineering was a very big jump whilst in the Navy. And while in the Navy, I did 13 courses, out of which there were 3 long courses as well. So I've been doing a lot of studying all this while. And that's where my journey stopped in the Navy, and I moved on into education, then from education into business and entrepreneurship. In all this while, there was a superimposition of a very big part of my life, that's Special Olympics. That is organization dealing with the intellectual disability. So that's in a nutshell the story of my life.
Oh, that's very inspiring. And so, can you tell us a bit more the layers? So, when you start your career in the army, and I think I know the armies of India is one of the most structured armies in the world, and actually one of the biggest as well. And it's really, I think it's probably a fantastic place because it actually consubstantiates all the different cultures of India. Because in the army, you have to take all the different castes, all the different culture background, and you are all have to serve the country. So I would like to have your approach on that, as well as someone that is a humanist, but someone that has been as well serving the country, and as well right now focus on humanitarian work, and as well a lot of humanist work in terms of education. But before that, just that part, particular experience with the army, I think it's very important because people don't have I think most of the people don't have any experience about with the army, and as well much less about something as complex as the cultural system of India, and as well representing the army of India.
That's a very interesting question. 15 long years of service and 3 years of training, 18 years in the armed forces. You're very right. We're not just dealing with cultures. We're dealing with the multiple religions, multiple languages. If you would know, or you would just Google, there are 14,000 languages, vernaculars, and dialects in India. As many gods and goddesses. Almost as many religions in a way. I mean, sub-religions and ethnical groups. However, till I left the army, that is the Navy, till I left the armed forces, that means 18 long years, really I would not know what God, what religion, or what mother tongue does my roommate or my batchmate or my senior or junior belongs to. Because the religion in the Indian Army, Navy, and Air Force, which I saw, was just the forces and nothing else. So if there was a place of worship in an Indian unit, it would be all the gods in one place, all the temples in one place. You're not allowed to have religious pictures or this thing posted in your on your rooms. It's not permitted. So, and you don't miss it, because your religion is only service, your religion is only working, your religion is exercise, your religion is preparation. So it was a wonderful cultural experience, because you would celebrate everybody's festivals, you would celebrate everybody's holidays, you would meet everyone's families and probably stay with them, and then eat each other's dinner and lunches in each other's houses. And it is an absolute perfect blend. The Indian Armed Forces experience I had was a perfect blend of this entire, this entire message of unity, collaboration, oneness, belief, and understanding that there is nothing which can break this bond. It was really good.
Well, that's really impressive, and I think it's beautiful in the sense that it creates a collateral experience of respect between all the different religions, different cultures, and as well it creates a sense of belonging, which is quite unique. And I think we need that more than ever, especially in our days of a lot of division that we're facing, especially with the geopolitics and things like that. So I want to pick on that example, and as well your work in terms of education. So from that experience, I'm sure that it creates kind of a humanitarian, and as well I would say, I think especially me coming from a cultural background of Catholicism and educated by priests, is a bit like this respect by all the religions, which I like, but it's not so easy to get, because I was actually reading an article and an essay today that it's very easy to blame problems in other people, but it's difficult to find the problems and actually to try to coexist with the differences. And I think that is one of the beauty things of India, and as well probably the biggest, I would say the biggest achievement of India, that is this multicultural. So how do you see that, and how did you start your education experience on these two levels?
It's a story. It's a story you'll love to listen. So in my 15th year of my service, I had just become a commander, put on my stripes and, the braided cap you get when you're a commander.
Yeah.
and did my stripe vetting and all those things. And I had just cleared my staff college course. It's a prestigious course to do your staff course at Wellington. And my son, who had just turned 18 months, he got diagnosed with autism. Now, we didn't know what is autism then. Trust me, I had to Google what is autism. And now it's a I mean, autism is known to everybody. I'm talking of about 20 years back. So that's the time when it was first denial by me and my wife. Then it was anger for a couple of days. Why me, etc. Then it was mourning for a couple of days because you feel sorry for yourself and what did I do? What did we do? But this phase of anger, denial, and mourning, normally for a person who has intellectual disability, their parents, it goes on for years. So we as a couple took a decision in days. I remember 24th of December was Christmas Eve was the one we got diagnosed. And the first week of January, we mourned the New Year's. The New Year's Eve, both of us cried with a little baby in our hands. And then on the first week of January, following January, 10 days later, we decided to act. So we said there is going to be no more of this superstition and no more of this non-medical advice, no more of this disbelief in things. In India, you have a lot of people telling you, oh, it'll go away. You pray to this God and you do this and you put a thread around the hand, etc., etc. We said we'll take action. So the first action was me being in the armed forces. People in armed forces in India, and I'm sure across the world, they get transferred. They move very fast. I could see my entire timeline for the next 2-3 years. It would happen to staff college, to another posting somewhere, maybe India, maybe abroad, maybe wherever, on a ship sail for a long time. My wife was working with the hospitality industry, the director of sales at one of the largest hotel groups in India, the Indian Hotels Company, the Taj Group of Hotels. Both of us decided to let go of our ambitions. Mine was to become an admiral one day, and I'm sure I would have. My co-mates are rear admirals today. Okay, they are in that seniority. And my wife was the director of sales. We decided to quit and rededicate the rest of our lives to our son. And the Navy was very supportive. I had to go through the admiral, the vice admiral, everybody who said, no, you're a good officer. This is your profile, and you should not leave. You'll not get pension. You will not get anything else, and all the privileges will go away. What will you do? And we were determined. No, we got to look after our son. So that was the end of the naval life. They let me go. The moment that happened, my son was about 2 years. That's 18 months, 20 months. So the next 6 months, we were looking for a preschool for him, where he would go to a pre-kindergarten. At 3 years, children start going to a pre-kindergarten kind of a creche kind of a scenario in India. Nobody took him. Nobody was ready to take him. I was on my last outgoing days of the Navy. I used to wear my uniform, wear my stripes to make an impression, and my braided cap. Salute school principals all across the NCR. They wouldn't let me in. Days and days I would stand outside the gates of schools to have an admission for my son. They would not allow me. The best of schools. They would just turn me out and leave a message with the guard not to even let me in. I couldn't do anything. I tried everywhere. Maybe 50, 55, 60 schools. Me and my wife went with our child and sometimes alone. So that's the time I said, and we all sat down as a family. And my sister, my family has a very large business house into manufacturing for motorcycles. So I said, I will make a school of my own. I'll build a school of my own for my son. And that school will be the best school in this country. That school will be an integrated school which will welcome children with special needs with open arms. And today, that's how Scottish High International School was conceived. My son Ranveer was the first child in that school. Today, that school is rated as the best school in NCR, the top 10 schools of India. The wall in the lobby has more than 300 citations and trophies. They're overflowing. It is a school which has an integrated setup. Ranveer has passed out of the school now, but there are so many like him who have become champions. And Ranveer is a world champion today in golf. He got the gold medal at the World Summer Olympics USA in 2015 and the World Special Olympics last year in Abu Dhabi 2019. He got a silver. 4 times Asia Pacific Golf Masters champion, a Beam awardee, that's government award in the state, Limca Book of Records, 3 consecutive years as a champion is listed there, etc., etc. And there are so many prodigies like him. I have other Swaminathan, who is a great artist. He's got an album at 17 years of 100 paintings. He had an exhibition. We got an exhibition done. Another one, a soccer player who played in Bangladesh despite being autistic, and so on. So that's the journey of the school, which is still on.
Wow, that's it's really beautiful and very special. I think actually that in itself it made my day today. I appreciate. So I think. Like you said, you started with a sense of grievance, a sense of pain as well, because as a father, I'm a father, and I know how it is having a child that you feel, first of all, there's already a problem, but the second problem that you are suddenly take out of any social support. So one of the things I would like to go through the details is, how did you create that school, especially in India, and probably a lot of years ago when India was facing a lot of challenges? And how did you go in that journey to make the best school for children and young people with deficiencies and all these challenges, disabilities? So tell us about that experience. I think that's very inspiring, and I think everyone listening to us should be having attention and respect, because I think that's when I have someone complaining in my team or in my family, I always say, okay, if you have nothing good to say, don't say it first. And second, if you are complaining, just try to see what's the solution to the problem. Because I think we are all too much in our bubbles that you forget that there's a lot of much more outside of us than that. And especially when I see people that did what you did with all the challenge, that's the inspiration that we need for the world. So I would love to hear that experience from starting from point A to B, C, and so forth.
So Scottish High International School is a full-fledged school which welcomes children with and without intellectual disabilities. It's a normal school, but it is an integrated school. So 17 years back when the school started, you're very right, India's social stigma level was very high. It is still high compared to the world. People who have children with disability, especially intellectual disability, because physically they are all right, parents hide them in their rooms. Parents don't talk to relatives. They don't get them out to friends. They don't take them out to social gatherings. They actually hide them. They whisper in each other's ears. I've seen families, and I've counseled so many families where they get kept girls and boys, teenage girls and boys, locked up in houses because they don't want the stigma of the world. And for them, anybody who has an intellectual disability, they use the word mad. That's the only word they know, which is not right. So the first thing which was to be done was when we set up a school was to say that this is a school like any other school. And it is a school. It has 2,300 children. And it's like any other school, a normal school. But then this school will not have a small room or a center which is called a vocational center, and where you huddle up 12 children with disability and teach them something, candle making or something, and then you shoo them away. This will be a school which will welcome children with disabilities, but there will be no center for them. They will walk into the same classroom as the rest. They will go through the same classes as the rest. They will be taught by the same teacher as the rest. They will not be discriminated. So that was one thing which changed a lot of things, because the moment people said, children went and met these children, they realized they are no different. They have emotions, they have a heart, they're good friends, they can speak, they can talk, they are not to be hated. They won't beat you up. That's what was the stigma at home. That is what these uh, children are taught, probably, or were told at home, to stay away from such children. That was one. Then was, these children need support. So I created a team of physiotherapists, audiologists, sensory dietitians, nutritionists, etc., who would make, or occupational therapists, who would be there with the technology. These children, they require specific diets. A 15-year-old autistic child may need to be put on a swing and actually turned around about 20 or 30 times, and turned around the other way around, so that he's sensory satiated. He has his diet, is calm. And similarly, another one may want to be listening to music for about 7 to 8 minutes in the day to calm down. So find out those needs scientifically, pull them out of the classroom, give them a sensory diet, or a physiotherapy or a occupational therapy, and push them back in. The one who is slurring, who is not able to speak because of lack of confidence, because of an intellectual disability, give a little bit of speech therapy and push back. So the first stage was acceptance. So the so-called normal children started accepting the children with disabilities, and they started moving in the same classroom. Then came the policy. We built so many policies around these children which people don't even know today. For example, uh, people would not want children with disability to come in a race or a debate or a dance competition, because they know that in the competition they would lose marks when one house competes with another and another and another. However, we made policies like, whichever clan, like a house is a clan in Scottish High International School, like the original clans, MacArthur and Boyd and like that, Lamont. So any clan who picks up a child with intellectual disability to compete gets 10 grace points, 10 extra points. And lo, the whole world wanted these children to be in their team. So you suddenly, instead of shunning them away, people were wanting them to be there. And then these children are with fantastic, amazing talents. I mean, some of them are perfect pitch. Some of them are, like I said, there's a world champion golfer. I mean, he beats me today on the golf course when I play golf with them. Some are excellent musicians. One of the girls is an outstanding classical dancer. So once they see these talents coming and brewing, and the so-called normal children of the world, they start respecting them from their heart. Then we said there will never be a birthday party which will not be attended by these children. And then the parents get involved. And then the parents see, instead of having pity on these children, they start respecting them. That listen, they're just like anybody else. And then play dates. And then studying together, going on camps. Parents of intellectual disability children do not let their children alone. Never. Never. Even I didn't. I never used to. I would not trust anybody with my son when he was 3 years old. We said, no, let them go on the adventure camps. Let them go to trekking. Let them go to mountaineering, like we do with river rafting, like other children. And all right, we'll send a special educator along. We'll send the medicines along. And therefore, everybody saw that these children are getting integrated with the normal school, and they're growing up, they're studying, they're playing, they are getting accolades, trophies, and then passing out. So there came a day in about the 6th or 7th year when one of our school students who was intellectually disabled came back with a trophy, and he was pulled. He was pulled in a cart into the auditorium by his classmates. That means they made a cart, they had ropes, and they put him on his shoulder, sat in the cart, and they pulled him in for that trophy. And it was a tearful sight, tearful joy, a sight to watch. So then we synerged with the Special Olympics, ESPN Unified. ESPN has launched a campaign, Unified Schools. Okay, and then they rate schools, and we may call them champion schools or otherwise. So Scottish has been a ESPN unified champion school for many years. We are proud to have that big display of that certificate. That means there is a whole school involvement, engagement through the year for children with intellectual disability and the normal children. So this is how this school came up. And when you have a school where your foundations are good, you have a good curriculum. It's an IB school. It's a Cambridge IGCSE school as well. It also has a third curriculum that is a national curriculum. It has a fourth curriculum that is an open schooling curriculum for these children. So when you have a strong academic rigor, you have children who are founded there with compassion and with knowledge. The school automatically scales and peaks high, and that is how we have reached there.
It's amazing and very inspiring, and as well it shows as well all the passion that you put onto this, and I think the challenge that it is, because we're talking about first of all picking something that is very painful and very as well, even in a lot of ways it's affecting we as parents, as humans, but as well as being part of society and building something as amazing as the school that you've been building. So I would like to understand just on the school, and I think still on the school part. So how did you build this? Because I think would be interesting for people around the world, especially in Africa. We are working right now with a lot of institutions in Africa and in other countries, and as well Latin America. This is still a very big stigma of society, and I think what you build is right now very successful, and this inspiration of both aggregating the parents and the story, both of disability and the sports, and as well all the different areas, but as well bringing together a lot of different criteria of quality of education and take it to a much bigger level. So can you tell us a bit about that process from the building of the school to create all this curricula, as well to integrating different areas of education, and as well creating a vision that right now is really fantastic and very successful in India? And are you as well trying to take it to the rest of the world? Because I think I see as well, especially in Africa and Latin America, this is still a massive stigma and it's still a massive problem. Even in Europe, I think parents, especially intellectual disability, is much more intense and much more psychological intense, but as well people are afraid of talking about it. And as well, for instance, my father has a small disability, not a small, in his leg, but it's like you said, it's a physical disability. And I always respect him because he's a successful man by himself, and he never actually stopped doing anything that any other person. And I respect even more for that. But I know that when it's an intellectual disability, people have other kind of challenges. So we would like to touch that, and as well the experience of building that in New Delhi, then the experience of India, and then international, because you have as well that experience.
Okay, so there were a lot of challenges when we launched the school. The first one was that we wanted to move out of the traditional schooling in India. At that time, the schooling, most of the schooling was, except barring a couple of old-time boarding schools, was you have a child come into the classroom, 8 periods of learning, and off you go back home at lunchtime. It was books, books, and books. So we said, no, this is not good enough. If you want to really have a child get into not just a person, but build a personality out of that child, you got to work on a lot of things, not just knowledge. You got to work on risk taking. You got to work on. You have to work on compassion, on humanity, on moral grounds, etc. Sports was a very important part of learning, I thought, and being a sports person myself, that had to be integrated into the curriculum, and not just a sports period where you have one sports period a week. Trust me, majority of the schools in India would have time of only about a couple of periods for a few people a week to go and play out. I mean, you have a school team, but a school team is only of 16 people out of 5,000 students in a school. So we said the way to do that is to have a long day boarding school. So we begin at 7:50 in the morning, and we close at about 4 p.m. in the evening. That's how long the school is. And it's not a boarding school, it's a day boarding school, the longest day boarding school probably in this entire region. So we said, let children come here, let them have breakfast, and breakfast not in their tiffins which they get from home. Let them be seated along with their clan tutors and their mentors in school, and they learn table manners and everything else. They pray before they say grace before they have their food, and they'll go through their classes, which will be indoor, outdoor, as well as studies, and then they have lunch there, and then they continue their classes and their games in the fields. They finish their homework in school, the younger one, and then they go home and have time with their parents, rather than rushing here early morning, half asleep at 6:37, most of them without breakfast, running to school and going through a few classes and then going home and then again studying. So we said that's not real education. So that was not really that was a big obstacle, because people wouldn't understand it. People didn't understand. So when the first 200, 300 odd children came in, and parents trusted us for that, and we had a fantastic team at Scottish High. Most of the team, we just started the 15-year medal, long service medal, and I was so surprised to see 67 names of ex-employees who got that medal, the gold medallion for long service. So I had a fantastic team. So once these 200 children stayed on for a couple of years, the word went around that this is different. And then we said, okay, we want to move into an international curricula. Why? Our national curricula is very good. It's really nice, well settled. But then people wanted to study in foreign universities. There is more acceptance of IB grades around the world, of IGC A-level grades across the world, O-level grades across the world. So there were very few international schools in India. People call themselves international schools, but there's no international curriculum. We said, no, this is going to be real international. So we got in, we flew down and had a word with the International Baccalaureate. They came down and did our inspections and all. And we embraced IB and we embraced IGCSE Cambridge almost together. That's about 12, 13 years back. And today we are known as the beacon of IB schools in India. And so that's how the foreign curricula came in. The moment you get a good established curriculum in your school, be it the IGCSE or be it the IB, both are very strong curricula, right? Automatically the system set in. The system of inspections audit, the system of syllabi, the rigor, the assessments, everything comes in place. Training, a lot of professional development for not just students but for teachers. A whole lot of 100 to 150 courses happening in Sundays and holidays, and teachers in India and abroad. A lot of money spent, a lot of budget still being spent on training our trainers. A lot of academic training techniques, right from, let's say, robotics to carpentry to photography and so on. So green revolutions, children leading, movements in the streets, children leading movements for women empowerment, children leading movements for green revolution, children making plastic bricks to save the world, and so on. So it's been a journey which has been 16 years now. It's been a journey where it built with the essence of understanding the world, understanding the future, trying to build a personality and not just a person. And we said, let us define what is the alumni of this school going to be. And this definition was made before the first day of school began, you see, a decade and a half back. And we said, a person who passes out of the school would be knowledgeable, would have studied well, would have understood concepts, should be able to go through an interview. That is, he has to be communicative. He should have debated a couple of debates rigorously, should be able to play a team game, should be able to play an individual game, should be able to swim 50 meters in water, should be able to be adventurous, should be able to stop at the roadside and pick up that beggar, pick the beggar up and make him sit and maybe feed him a little. We should be compassionate. Should not be unlawful and dishonest. Should have the chivalry of a man who would know which side of the car to sit and how to introduce a woman to another person or a senior or a junior. So we defined that, and we said, so our school will be defined by an alumni who is this, and not by how many marks did that child get in his board examinations. So I think that's what made the difference. Like Robert Frost says, uh, travel the road less, when you go by the road less traveled by, and that's what made the difference. So probably that's what made the difference.
Yeah, that's very. I'm actually checking right now all the different things that you've been doing as we speak, and it's really impressive. And as well, what I love is your passion and sense of commitment and sense as well of change. So one of the things you've been doing is working on the board of Special Olympics International, mentoring
Yes.
177 countries across the world. And you have worked with Dr. Timothy Shriver, that is the nephew of the John F. Kennedy, and the chairman of the Social Development Project in the Schools of New Haven in Connecticut, but as well working collaborative for academic, social, emotional learning at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and leading a lot of movements on these areas internationally. Can you tell us about that work? Because I think, first of all, it's something that we need always to highlight, especially with all, I think we don't have now more than just the disabilities. We have a lot of social disabilities, let's put it that way. And this is becoming a huge problem. But I think just looking at your experience, I think it can demystify all the issues we have and all the problems we're facing right now in society. And with the advent of COVID-19 and a lot of other issues with social distance and a lot of psychological problems that come out of this, but we still have a lot of infrastructure issues with intellectual disabilities and education. So if you can get us about this experience and as well the work with the Olympics International, that is, I think, very, very inspiring and very necessary.
So Dr. Timothy Shriver is the chairman of Special Olympics Worldwide. Okay, so the head office is based out of Washington, and he's of course the nephew of President John F. Kennedy, and his mother Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who is no more with us. She's the one who set up Special Olympics at her backyard 50 years ago, at her backyard. So with a sibling who was a person with an intellectual disability, she set up and she said, we can change the world. She set up a Camp Shriver in her own backyard. And that's where, she did a lot of work across the world, and Timothy took over the legacy and is continuing to do a fantastic job. So Special Olympics International covers 177 countries or more now, and more than 5 million athletes in the world with intellectual disability. I have been on the board of Special Olympics International. I've served 4 years as the chair of Special Olympics India as the chairman. I'm still on the board of Special Olympics Bharat, that is India. I have been the chair of Special Olympics Asia Pacific Unified Sports Committee for about, again, as much time, about 4 years. And I have served Special Olympics India now for about 15 years. 15 years now. I was a volunteer. Then I became, a trustee with a state. Then I became a trustee with another state. Then I became a trustee, a director of the national office. Then I was put on the chair in 2015. And I continue to be the vice president of another province in India, the Special Olympics. And India has 1.4 million athletes. Now, this entire story is very beautiful when you are inside Special Olympics and when you actually meet these athletes. You meet the youth leaders, you meet the coaches, you meet the mentors. I have not seen a more professional organization in my entire life as the Special Olympics International. They have targets, missions, strategies. They have teams, branding, funding, execution, operations. They go to villages as late as last year. I remember in Africa, northern of Africa, the Special Olympics found out that in a village there was a child, Malaki. That's the name I remember, Malaki. In a board meeting where I was present in the United States last year, Malaki's photograph was shown that he was chained inside a house by the parents. And Malaki was retrieved, brought into the Special Olympics program of the village. And Malaki ran a race in the World Games last year in Abu Dhabi. Now, these are stories which are all over the world. India has social stigma. Of course, it has. The whole world has. Some have more, some have less. So Special Olympics is one organization which says we are going to have a whole year engagement with people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities. Engage them in sports, help them in health camps, meet their families and caretakers and have family forums, and make sure that we make lives out of these people. And that's what it has done to more than 5 million athletes across the world. And I'm so proud. It has taken a lot of my time, especially when I was on the chair of Special Olympics India for about 4 years. Challenges are the same all over the world. When I was on the board of Asia Pacific, 35 countries, they all would say the same story. No money, more athletes being diagnosed. That means more people being diagnosed, more athletes being registered, more needs of hearing aids and other things for dental problems which they cannot express. People touching the stories of people holding hands on their ears, and you're thinking it is a natural reaction of a person with intellectual disability, maybe something in the brain. But actually, it is something else. It is a pain in the jaw for a dental problem. So things like these, it is so interesting. It is so challenging and so satisfying. So the journey with Special Olympics has been beautiful. It is still on. It is still on. And trust me, any person with intellectual disability needs to just Google and reach out to the first Special Olympics center. They have never learned to say no. A center which has no funds, including London. My daughter is studying at the London Business School doing a master's, about to pass out next month. And she reached out, obviously, she's a youth leader and has been a youth leader for many years for Special Olympics. And she reached out to Special Olympics London. And, they welcome you with open arms. They don't have funds. They'll say, "No, come on in, get yourself registered, and tomorrow you have a session. You just come down." So it's so beautiful. 150,000 coaches in India don't get paid because there's no money. They don't get paid. They are volunteers, coaches for Special Olympics. If you know how to play any game in this world and you know the rules, you could be a coach in Special Olympics. It's so easy. So I'm sorry, I just kind of went astray in this question, but coming back. So Special Olympics has been a very important part of my life, and I'm so proud to have been that. And my son led me there. There is no doubt. I confess, my son is the one who led me there, and actually, it helped probably thousands and thousands of others whom I could serve, including my own school, which is a unified champion school and continues to be today.
Well, that's sad. Yours, your son, but the work you've been doing is your work, and I think your enthusiasm is contaminating in the good way, and as well, I think even me that I've been contacting with this, I feel that there's much more that we need to do, and I think especially nowadays, and I think that's probably my next question. We are going through a very challenging moment in history, where we have, in one end, the biggest technology of our times, the development, but at the same time, we started to have the biggest cleavage that we didn't have for a long time. And I know that in India, you always had these extremes from poverty and wealth, but in the world, it's been kind of a balance that in the last kind of 5 years have been kind of disrupted. And I think right now with COVID-19 is getting increasing more complex, especially with the use of technology for creating division and a lot of different things. So you've been in the other opposite, that is focusing, like you said, in a lot of things that have zero funding, and as well building things with your own, all your savings and everything to build a school like this. It's not easy to build a school, much more difficult to build a school for people with disabilities, and especially intellectual disabilities. So what would be your advice for people all over the world that are facing families, relatives, and even people in their ecosystems that have disabilities, first? And second, I think what organization do you suggest? Because like you said, you are in India, New Delhi, but you have relationships with the US, your daughter is in the UK. And I think it's really important to contextualize this and actually coming up with small solutions. A lot of these things, you don't need really millions of dollars. You need just to integrate social organizations and social movements and starting to do something. And I feel that I have to do much more. And after listening to you, definitely I will. But if you could just give some of these contexts where people can just interact with you and interact as well with some of the organizations that you've been highlighting.
Sure. So the first question first, if I would meet a person, whenever I do, a person who has a child with intellectual disability or any kind of disability, especially an intellectual disability, because we know that a person who has a physical disability knows how to think, knows how to decide, is worldly wise, probably cannot walk that straight or fast, or probably doesn't have a limb or an eye, but certainly can make a living for himself or herself. However, a person with intellectual disability who seems perfectly all right, beautiful, handsome, and everything else, can run a mile, has inheritance, let's say, a lot of money left by the parent, but would be just told, please sign this check. And he would sign it and lose it in a day. He wouldn't know how to cross the road, go through an immigration line. He wouldn't know which gate to take if the gate change happens at the last moment, and why. Would not understand why a flight is delayed, and delayed for, let's say, more than X number of hours. It's very difficult. So that's why I would like to concentrate on the persons with an intellectual disability first. So when I meet a person who says my child has intellectual disability, this is what I tell them. I say, firstly, congratulations, because you have a child who will never ever lie to you. You have a child who will never be dishonest. You have a child who will never ever be naughty. You have a child who will always listen to you and will be the most disciplined amongst all the children you have, because that is the trait of such children. They don't know how to lie. They don't know how to be dishonest. They don't know how to keep secrets. You have to teach them that you cannot let out your ATM password to anybody except mama and papa and things like that, right? So, and you build a routine for them. I play golf and I take golf lessons too. So I have seen coaches telling a child to hit 100 balls from this bucket over the range, and the moment the coach moves out, they're all on their cell phones. Try doing that with a child with intellectual disability. Let's say my son Ranveer. You tell him you got to hit 100 balls and then you can have a glass of water. He will not have a glass of water after 99. It's 100 balls. They don't cheat. So congratulations. That's the first thing I tell them. Second thing I tell them is, stop mourning. That phase is over. He's not dead, or she's not dead. Thank God they're alive. They're children, your children in your own hands. Look for the strengths. They all say, he doesn't do this. He drools. He has a swing in his head. He blinks. He has epilepsy. He has to always be monitored. But they never talk about the goods. So I tell them, can you tell me 5 good things about him? So start looking for the positives in your child. Trust me, you'll find many. They may be great pianists, playing by the ear, or guitarist playing by the ear. They may have perfect pitch, like I said. You may discover so many talents which you do not know. They would remember dates and scooter numbers. They will be perfect designers. They will be perfect data entry operators. They will not, they can spot a digit here and there on a big Excel sheet like this. So let's spot their talents. Next, biggest mistake parents do is, he doesn't have a school. He can't study, he can't understand physics, maths, and English. Don't teach them. They don't need to go through formal education, because if they can read the Shakespeare the other way around but not cross the road, it's of no use. So teach them life skills. Make them go through open schooling to get some recognition, a degree for their future life or something. But teach them life skills. Teach them how to cross the road. Teach them how to operate an ATM. Teach them how to work on a Word file. Teach them filing. Teach them talking to people. Teach them table manners. Teach them how to wash. Teach them how to change. Teach them how to cook. Personal hygiene. I mean, a child, boy, grows to a teenager, grows to a man. We all know. I mean, he needs to learn a lot of things. Teach them. Same is for the girls. So this would be my advice to them. Next, what do? We are scared that when we will die, there'll be nobody to look after him. So I tell them, right, absolutely right. So what do? You are not going to stop yourself from dying. That's going to happen one day. So are you going to start working to make sure that somebody looks after him and that somebody can only be him? So get his siblings around, make them sensitive, teach them that this is their brother or sister and has to be looked after. If he doesn't have siblings, relatives of his age, and most of all, try to set him up to look after himself or herself right now. That's what I'm doing with my son. He gets up, makes his tea, has his breakfast. If there's nobody to fix his bed, he can cook his breakfast. First, it used to be cold breakfast when it used to be 5 or 6 years of age. Now he can have a nice omelette for himself. He takes his bath on his own, changes on his own, goes here. He can't drive. He's not allowed by law to drive, right? It's because of his disability. So a car takes him, let's say, to the golf course. He knows how to, pick up his slip, pick up his caddy, play a game, tip him. And I get pleasant surprises when somebody calls me from the golf course and says, listen, I found your son having a cup of coffee with 2 foreigners, and he just joined the group, had a game with them, and he's having coffee with them and is coming home. I feel thrilled. And it's the same golf course where he went for the first time when he was 9 years old, and he was thrown out because he was shrieking. So we have to tell parents that, listen, it's a long battle. It doesn't get won in a day. But please do not surrender. Fight it. Find the strengths, hone the weaknesses, and it'll all come around. So that's for the parents of children with intellectual disability. Don't give up. Don't give up. We all are disabled, Don't we get angry? Don't we get upset? Don't we have mood swings? Don't we do certain things which are wrong in life? That's a disability. Temper. That's a disability. Come on. Everybody can't be perfect. The second thing is, whom do you connect? Trust me, I have to tell you, Dinis, you'll have to believe me. I have been through a lot in the intellectual disability and the disability field. Okay, blind schools and orphanages, disabled people's races and marathons and everywhere. Youth leadership, and hundreds of them I have met, hundreds of families I have met. A person who needs to connect with a forum does it. And if I rattle out 20 websites and 20 social media, links, if somebody does not want to connect, he won't. And the reason why people don't connect is they want only to hear, but they don't want to share. They don't want to talk about themselves. They want to be silent passengers and backseaters in that conference. They don't even want to register their names. They register in conferences with fake names. So I need to tell them, step out, announce yourself with a child in front of you and say, this is me. a parent of a child with disability. Can you help me? Trust me, one anonymous message and there'll be hundreds will come to you. Walk up to your nearest Special Olympics office, www.specialolympics.org, specialolympics.com, Special Olympics, Google. That's it. They will lead you to a family forum. They lead you to and it's all free. There's no charge. Special Olympics is all free, not even a membership charge. For God's sake, nothing. So walk up there and say, listen, I have a child. I want to just register. You get registered. You'll automatically get into forums and everything else. And if you have Google, you have a phone, I mean, just get connected. The problem is people don't do that. They don't do that. I'm telling you, my child, I'll give you a personal example. You said, say a small story. So we would go to Pizza Hut. He would be 5 or 4 years old. He would run to another table, pick up somebody's pizza, eat it, and come back. And we would be told what kind of parents do we have and what kind of children do we rear, and we would apologize and come. Immigration lines, he would go down under the those chains and go across the immigration officers, and we would be howled upon by people, obviously. But we did not tie him up at home. We flaunted him. We said it doesn't matter. We'll apologize on his behalf, but he needs to understand that. So you got to flaunt your child. Step one, you got to be not shy. Stigma has to be off your dictionary. Reach out to people. They will automatically reach out to you, and find the strengths in your child. Stop cursing yourself. Stop cursing the child. That's it.
Well, that's very inspiring, and I think especially I like that it's very practical, because, like you said, I love the fact that you're picking in something that people see as a weakness to see a strength. Because being a father is not easy, because you have to deal with all the complexity of us as children, as adults, and so forth, and all of us have a lot of flaws. So a child like this is actually, in some ways, is a blessing, because it brings as well a lot of focus that we have to be. Because with a child like that, you cannot have any moods, because the child needs us completely. So it's very important to bear that, and as well to demystify all the problems that we're facing right now. So I would like to go from these general problems, and we are passing 1 hour benchmark. So one thing is, so you build this company, and as well from your career on the Navy to your career as building a school, which is not a simple task. And as well, you created a group of business. And I really admire that, and especially in India, which I know from all my friends and from working for me in the last 20, 30 years, I understand that it's very complex to build a business there, especially grow it and nurture it and keep it going. So can you tell us a bit about that? Because I think it's very inspiring, but as well, everyone should learn with people like you that are, and I know that you're very generous, but as well, people can learn from you and eventually do some more better things for the world.
Well, there is, entrepreneurship, business. People say one has to do some fancy courses. That's what my daughter believes, and is, as I said, doing a master's in the London Business School right now to do business or to run a successful business. But you and I both know, of course, it helps. It helps to get all your degrees and everything else. I'm still studying. After 13 courses in the Navy. I'm an engineer. I'm an MBA. I am continuing to be pursuing my studies. I'm in the last semester of my MA Economics at this age, and as we speak, I'm in my entering my second semester of my PhD in management at the university in Delhi, in NCR. So you got to keep studying, you got to keep learning. But then the journey of business, the journey of entrepreneurship, the journey of multifarious businesses which one looks after. I mean, you can call yourself a serial entrepreneur or whatever, but they all lie in a fire which is inside you. And the fire, I may not have had too much money to begin with, and but the fire was there. The fire was there when I was in the Navy to be an admiral, and when I left, the fire was there to serve this country in a different way. That was education and Special Olympics, and the fire to do business, to grow, to primarily was for Ranveer. that I need to build something for him. It all started there. That I have an elder daughter, and in India, daughters, I should say, uh, no child can ever be a burden on you. But in India, a daughter is to be married, and there's a responsibility of a parent to, to. I mean, it's felt like that. It is the kind of in our blood that you have a daughter, you need to marry her off well, and marriages in India are not so easy. You just don't go to church and just get married in an hour, and that's all. It's days of weddings and everything else. I have a second child who is a disabled child, and his life needs to be sorted. I have a third one as well, who is just 11 years, who is just a small child now, right? So, and I have my parents. I have my old father and mother staying with me. These are all the people were around me, and my responsibility, and they have been for many years. So therefore, one tends to tell yourself that it's not the time to retire soon. You got to do a lot of work. You got to work overtime. You have to innovate. You have to reimagine. You have to tread carefully, where you cannot risk too much of money, but risk all of your health and sweat if required, so that you can churn out a business model which works, which survives. So those have been the bed points of everything else. I have been lucky. I have been lucky. Luck and God has been with me. Uh, I have had good teams. I have had wonderful people to work with. I have had wonderful colleagues and subordinates who have been loyal to me, and probably emulated the loyalty which I have shown to my seniors and my people who have mentored me and who have took me along with me. So I think this entire thing has been: be honest, be truthful, tread out, uh, be a risk taker, uh, innovate, reimagine, and don't stop thinking. Don't keep your goalpost steady. Keep moving it. Every time you move forward, keep moving your goalposts. Uh, Tell yourself you'll never retire. Have a I'll repeat Timothy Shriver's words. He always says, have an audacious ambition and a restless dissatisfaction in your heart. I always tell myself. So have an audacious ambition, restless dissatisfaction in your heart, keep going, and everything will fall in its place.
Wonderful. And I think it's very inspiring as well, and like everything you've been as well showing. So probably as the last two questions, because we passed the 1 hour. So I would say that giving everything that you achieved, and as well with all the challenges we're facing in the world, which to be honest, after hearing your challenge, I don't think they're as big as sometimes we believe them to be, because there's a lot of a lot of opportunities as well, like you just said. And I think a lot of these things is about having that fire in inner fire that you just mentioned. So how do you see, so the first question is, how do you see all these technologies that we are right now building, and special digital transformation, and as well in education? I know that this has a lot of possibilities, but as well it can be used as I think a weapon of mass destruction, or even a weapon of stupidity, as we have, and as well in some ways a way of really destroying trust and eroding all the hope that we have, because if you just put negative things in social media and things like that, we create a negative stuff. So how do you see the technologies of our time, especially as being a director of a school and owning as well a school with special education skills, but as well within a network of sports for both disabled, but as well not just disabled, because you are as well a golf player, and you are as well a very social included person. So how do you see this, the technology in particular? Because I think this is critical for our society, for our cities, and especially for education.
Dinis, it's one of my favorite questions. So, I just moderated a webinar last week, which was on a similar subject, and there were these heads of international schools of India who were together, and they were talking about how technology can replace a real physical classroom. And there were some technocrats as well, and they gave presentations on how a forest can be recreated, and a dinosaur's feel and sound reaches your own table sitting at home and stuff like that. So while technology, I mean, let's not just talk of the COVID times. I mean, COVID is a special. I mean, it's kind of a different situation where there is a social distancing which we need to have. So you have no option but to learn through Zoom and Google and Microsoft Teams, etc., etc. But and then you have some links, and then you click on them, and then you have Google Forms, and you have exam.net and stuff like that. So let's not talk of this phase. This phase we had no alternative to have Zoom classes, and teachers having Zoom classes even of physical education and dance and cooking and everything else. So because there was, again, like I said, no alternative. But I feel generally, leaving aside the COVID times, technology is going on an exponential mode right now, right? People even say that there'll be a time when you talk of, let's say, robotics. So robotics are going to take over themselves, and then you may not be able to control them. So it's a great help. It's a great boon. It is a great aid. It brings together a lot of things across the world, connects beautifully, etc., etc. But I asked a simple question, and that's probably I will like to answer you with a question. Can we compare, however virtual, forest or a river or a wildlife you can create with a 3D classroom? Okay? Can you compare it with the experience, the feel, the smell of the water and the air and the earth element of actually going on an adventure trek in the woods? You cannot. With all the technology coming in where you can smell, actually virtually smell things, you can feel things, it's not going to replace an actual crossing the river, making a team. I mean, we have people where we send a team, let's say 10 people team, who make a raft, who build their own raft and cross a river, a real river. Can any technology replace that? No. Similarly, I mean, you have a swimming pool, and on top of the swimming pool, I have a 7.5 meter board, and across the pool there's a wire rope. So a child in a school has to not just learn 50 meters, like I said, 50 meters of swimming at least by the time he passes out. He's got to climb that board, and imagine a small child who's just about 4 feet goes up that 7.5 meter board, hangs himself on a roller on the wire, and rolls down to the center of the pool, and then jumps down like a commando in a big larger scale. Okay, army commando in a big larger scale. So this is to instill in him the nature of daring and jumping and the fear of water goes. Can this be replaced by any technology? No. So can emotion be replaced by technology? No. Can you feel and understand an intellectually disabled person or a hungry person through technology? No. So I feel technology is being used by all of us in business, at home, and at school in a big way. I mean, we have all that. Your Chromebooks to video conferencing to Skype meetings and Zoom classes, everything is there in most good schools. But unless you taste the dust, unless you jump into the water, unless you stay in a village, which my children do during their camps, they go and stay in a village house and cook which doesn't have a gas, which doesn't have cooking oil. Okay, they burn wood and they do cooking. Children in a school get wood and go on a cooking expedition and they cook. So that cannot be replaced by any technology. I hope you agree with me.
No, it's probably we'll need a couple of hours to go for that, but I think in the basis I'm completely with you. Of course, we're going to have a lot of iteration, especially as we get into singularity and as we become a bit cybernetics, all of us, and our use of technology. But that is a bigger one. So I want to touch on the tools for education, and I think as an expert in education, and as well, I think as a military, I think one of the things that, for instance, if you look at Israel. Israel has been doing one of the best examples, whatever you like, in different ways, but the bridge between the military society and the society. That, and even for instance, in Switzerland, that everyone has to do a bit of social work in terms of military work. And I think that is very important, the sense of discipline and the sense of education, which is critical for anything we're doing nowadays, even as we get more and more technology. So what's your advice on that? And you touched a bit the power of emotion, the power of coaching, but I think we need the power of discipline in the right way, of course, but as well a bridge between discipline that is offline and online as we create digital twins. So how do you see that part, and what's your suggestions on that?
Yeah, I think that's very right, Dinis, that discipline it should be an integral part of any kind of culture, any kind of work, or home, even at home. Discipline in life, whether it is your own health, whether it is your own well-being, whether it is your own planning and strategizing of your business, you have to be disciplined. Uh, Discipline just doesn't mean punctuality. Discipline doesn't mean marking a salute to your senior. Discipline does not just mean following the rules. Discipline also means following a process which is without supervision. Discipline also means self-discipline. That means you impose yourself. Discipline also means exemplary discipline, where you others follow you rather than you following somebody else. So in technology also, I think uh, discipline is of prime importance. We all know, but I feel that we are probably not all doing that. I mean, whether it is technology in armament, whether it is technology in warfare, whether there is technology even in education. Uh, we go overboard sometimes. We do not know where to draw lines. Sometimes it is destructive, especially let's say in the military, etc. It is destructive. We feel that probably, let's say, droning. If you're talking of Israel, I mean, Israeli Air Force is one of the finest air force in the world, right? The pilots are well known to be the trainer pilots for many countries of the world, pilots of many countries of the world. So as far as that is concerned, it's good. But droning is today the is like a second home for any intelligence agency, whether it is an investigative agency or otherwise. But then it impedes, and it gets into the areas of privacy. It gets into it intrudes countries and their laws, which is probably not right. I mean, comparing military with education may not be really right, but the we can have a common comparison, an analogy at most, that in both cases, while the intent of each one of them is to protect and in one way to learn, but the action which happens at the end of it all sometimes becomes destructive. I mean, little children, I do not know, there are contradictory advisories on, let's say, Zoom classes, uh, screen time for little children, no alternatives for other than screen time during COVID like situations. On the other hand, one cannot replicate a virtual reality, let's say a forest which we talked of, to a small child other than taking to a forest which you can't. There is also an emotion which you cannot teach through technology. Like you rightly said, you have to get the human angle as well. So where do you draw a line? So things where you need to draw a line, things where you do not need to cross or not to cross, is what is discipline. So I think as educators, we as policymakers, we as management of education, whether it is special education, whether it is the normal education, higher education, we need to draw those lines. We need to set those markers. We need to monitor them that they are not crossed. You cannot have children and teachers play havoc on technology and it becomes destructive in some ways. Similarly, military commanders, policy makers, politicians, and nationalists of different countries, they need to work on the military front to ensure that technology doesn't lead to and automated, unsupervised, uncontrollable situations where somebody knows a password and that's it, and there you go, there's a nuke which goes off somewhere. It cannot be. So what are the protocols? I think you people like you and I need to set up, and you have been you and your channels have been uh, major influencers across the world with millions of followers. I think this is the message you may like to think to pass on, because you would be able to influence for the good of this world, to tell every stakeholder of this world, be it a parent, be it a teacher, be it a parent of a special needs child, be it a military advisor, that we need to draw lines of discipline on technology, whichever field we are.
Well, I'm very humble, and I think with a sense of responsibility. But I think probably, and my last question, and I think you touched that, but I think we need that, and I want to repeat the message, and probably as the last question is, so taking everything you said, which is very inspiring in a lot of different layers, both in terms of the intellectual and ideal part of the inspiration of your work and your balance, and as well the work you did with your son and your school, and with thousands of lives that have been changing and adapting and actually improving, and parents, probably millions of people that indirectly comes the Olympics and so forth. But one of the things still is it comes back to our inner fire and our self-motivation, the capacity to wake up every day and continue changing. And as well, I think for me, probably the challenge as both an individual, but as well as a leader, and as well as a father, and as well part of a society is how do you make the balance to keep being a better person, but as well improving the world? And I think especially at the moment, this is kind of, we can very easily get lost in all the noise, and the noise is very negative. We have and I think India, even with all the complexity of India, what I love about most of the people that I've been engaging, and as well I love about India, is that sense of inspiration, and the sense of the better is still yet to come, which I think we need to repeat that. So I would like to have your views on that, because as a humanist, as someone that has been highlighting the human values in the good way, and as well someone that actually been on the theory and the practice pushing this forward, is not easy. And you make it sound very easy, but it's not easy. And I think it's really important, because I think we, at least my success came with a lot of success, a lot of failure, in the sense that you go to the edge, we have to go through the financial challenges, sometimes getting entire projects that we spend so much time, efforts, things that don't work always the best way. So I would like to touch that part, both the failure and the success, but as well the inspirational part, as a wrap up for this wonderful interview.
Oh, this is a question I've been asked in so many forums. So other than the usual things which you and I would obviously be doing in terms of prioritizing our work and understanding what's the difference between urgent and important, and people not normally don't understand that, because the more important things are always left, and the urgent ones are attempted till the important ones become urgent. So I keep telling my staff everywhere that if you are told to finish a production of an item by evening, let's say in a factory, and the other task is to give me ideas of policy changes in human resources for the next budget year, you would just go for the urgent thing, that by tonight's deadline you got to dish out this report, and not think about the policy for next year. Oh, there is a lot of time. Oh, it's about HR policy and all. Till the time a year passes by and I say, hello, excuse me, I asked you for a suggestion of the HR policy, and then can I have it now? And then that becomes urgent now, and then you scribble something by night and give it to me, whereas that was the most important thing. So understanding what is important, what is urgent, is one thing which has really helped me. But flipping the scene, flipping the scene is smart switching, which I call it. So this my favorite term is smart switching. So a typical situation, you land up in school, in your office, and you get a call from the principal, and she says, sir, bus number 23 had broken down, and children had to be taken out, and etc., etc., and they put into another bus. So what do we do about leaving the children back in the evening? Should we hire another bus, or should we wait for this one to get repaired? We don't know how long it will take. So a small question, okay? And then another call from, let's say, one of my manufacturing units, and something is missing and something is broken down. And I have another business which is in hospitality. So, the chef is saying that this can't be done, and we're going to lose food for about 500 people. And I'm also a father, so a call from my youngest one that, Dad, I'm sure you're going to watch my first equestrian show today. And in between, another call from a friend, and or a message pops up and says, listen, I hope you haven't forgotten that we have a golf game and we are about to tee off and you're already on the way. So these things happen, and all of them require decisions, some big, some small. A child, a son needs a decision. Are you coming for my first equestrian show, which you promised? And to top it all, it may be a bad day, and you may still get a call from your wife saying that, do you remember the last time you took me out? And you know what? So you've got to switch smartly. That's what I said. So you cannot carry one scene of one office, of one decision into another and into another. That's what I have learned. So that's how one can wear so many hats. That's how one can concentrate on one thing at a time. One cannot leave the smaller things and start doing a longer thing first. I start finishing off and I prioritize my work. That the things which are going to take shorter time, I must get them out of the way first, because it's like a railway coach. You stop one coach and the entire thing stops. Things which are going to have a PERT which is going to be longer, the critical path is longer, keep them aside. Things which require urgent thinking, I keep it for, trust me, off working hours. I do not do them in working hours. I think while I'm playing golf or I'm having a drink in the evening. That's the time when I think the most. So these are probably my success mantras. They may not be true for everybody, but since you asked, I thought I must let you know, because there is no magic potion here. I have 24 hours, and I'm also a person with a family, with parents, with my own worries and everything else, with my own problems at work and at office and at home. And I'm a person who also travels a lot. I mean, I travel for 45 days out of 60, and that's a lot of travel, and it gets on you. You know that very well. So smart switching, prioritizing between urgent and important, doing the most important things in off working hours, and getting these smaller things which take smaller time and are holding up other people to do the work after that, get them out of the way first. And I trust my people. I delegate. I trust them. I tell them before they begin. If there's a call, it's so many years now. I have been working for 32 years, 35 years. Any call comes from my subordinate, and he says, "Sir, I wanted to tell you something. I have done something wrong." I say, "Forgiven." I just say forgiven. I don't want to know what it is. So you delegate and you tell them you're forgiven if you do wrong, and not really eat their head at the end of it all. It's fine. So these are the things which has made me go where I am, and there's a long way to go actually.
Well, I love the smart switching. I think it's a wonderful. You need to write a book about it. So I'm sure you wrote already something about it. Well, it's been an honor and privilege, and actually I'm very inspired. And there's a lot of things even that I want to look in a slightly different way, especially your work with intellectual disabilities, your work as an entrepreneur, and as well your continuous passion to build things of quality, and as well of benchmarking and changing the world. So thank you so much. It's really been a wonderful pleasure and experience. I hope all our audience around the world will have the same pleasure, and I'm sure they will. And I hope that we can actually change a bit better the world. We put all the links with your profile and with different projects that we've been doing in the platform. And we appreciate to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and namaste to millions of viewers.
Thank you so much. Wishing you all the best.